Coffee was discovered not in the rich world, but in the poor world. Scientists have traced the Coffea arabica plant to the Kaffa province of southwest Ethiopia, a region that remains one of the world's poorest. Indeed, there is evidence from this area dating to the 6th century AD that Ethiopian warriors mixed ground-up beans from the Coffea arabica with animal fat. Rolling the concoction into little balls, they created a low-tech energy blob they consumed before going into battle. One of the early coffee legends from Ethiopia recounts the tale of a young Ethiopian goat herder named Kaldi, who was surprised to discover his goats frolicking friskily after consuming the fruit from a wild bush. Probably bored with his pastoral duties, Kaldi decided to try the fruit himself, and was quickly overcome with a newfound vivacity and exhilaration. When rumors of the stimulatory effects of the plant reached the head of a nearby monastic order, the monk began to ingest the fruit himself and stumbled upon the idea of boiling it in water to create a hot drink that would keep his monks from falling asleep during evening prayers, apparently easier than making his prayers a little more exciting. In the 16th century, coffee spread from Ethiopia to Egypt and to the Arabian Peninsula, specifically near present-day Yemen. Shortly after, it spread to Europe, making successful forays into different European countries, particularly the Netherlands, Italy, France, and England. By 1650, Oxford had its first coffee house, and a year or two later the first coffee house opened in London. Puritans in England took readily to the new drink because it seemed to be widely adopted as a substitute for opium and alcohol, both of which they detested. It was regarded by many at the time as a sobering beverage and a mighty nutrient for the brain. By the mid-18th century, thousands of coffee houses across Europe in cities such as Marseille and Venice were becoming centers of conversation among merchants, businessmen, and civic-minded intellectuals. In many urban centers, the coffee houses became places where locals from all walks of life could go to read a newspaper, catch up on political gossip, or discuss the latest Enlightenment philosophies. In England, coffee houses were sometimes called penny universities for the education they offered to their customers at the price of a 1-penny admission. Many prestigious institutions evolved from these coffee houses in Britain, including the Royal Society, which began as a gathering of students at the Oxford Coffee Club. The great financial house Lloyd's of London began as a coffee house catering to merchants involved in overseas trade. But Europeans quickly discovered that their home continent was unsuitable for coffee growing. As a result, the crop would be introduced for cultivation almost entirely in European colonies. The Dutch introduced coffee cultivation in Java in 1696, perhaps the first instance of coffee being cultivated in a European colony for eventual consumption in Europe. Around this time, a pattern became established. Coffee would be consumed in the rich world and cultivated in the poor world. How did coffee come to Guatemala? It is claimed that the beans used to begin coffee cultivation in much of Latin America and the Caribbean came from a solitary plant. In 1714, the Burgermeister of Amsterdam bestowed on King Louis XIV of France the gift of a single coffee plant, a descendant from a Dutch coffee estate in its colony in Java. The king treasured the seedling and had it planted in the royal garden in Paris. Realizing that the crop could be cultivated more successfully in the colonies, the French naval officer Gabriel Mathieu de Cleo was giving one of the few surviving descendants of that plant to bring to Martinique, where the king desired to establish overseas French coffee cultivation. The ship encountered myriad obstacles in its quest across the Atlantic. Attacks by Tunisian pirates and ferocious storms threatened the boat. There was a scuffle aboard the ship between the Cleo and a jealous rival when at one dramatic moment a branch of the coffee plant was torn off. At another point in the voyage, the sailing ship stalled for weeks without wind in the doldrums, and the crew was running so low on water that it had to be rationed. Faithful to his duty, de Cleo allocated parts of his ration to the fragile plant. Just a few years after the 1726 planting of de Cleo's coffee seed,